Hi, I'm Chike Coleman of the Wheelchair Watcher. That's Chuck Kaplinski of the News Gazette and the Illinois Times. And this is Real Reviews, the Cinematic Underground, the show where we talk about movies that are new in theaters, sometimes some TV shows, and a few other things. Chuck, how was your past 2 weeks? Because we've been off for a while.
Very busy but good.
How so?
Oh, just, the usual. Kids running around, seeing movies, trying to enjoy the good weather.
We saw a lot of movies because this week was the 2016 Roger Ebert Film Festival. And there were quite a few small surprises within the festival this year, most of which had nothing to do with what was on the silver screen. We had a couple interesting panels. You were part of one.
Mm-hmm.
What panel was that? The Love and Mercy panel, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, trying to generate empathy through film.
And then I had a comment moment for the Oscars So White panel. Other than that, there was Grandma Blowout and a few other films that La Inhumaine, I think it's called.
Mm-hmm.
And Love and Mercy, of course, as well as there was a secret screening on Tuesday of that week for Everybody Wants Some, the newest film from Richard Linklater, and it's supposed to be a sequel to Dazed and Confused, or is it a prequel?
It's kind of both, but not really either. He also claimed that it was essentially, in some regards, a sequel to Boyhood in spirit, as far as, this deals with kids at college, their first year of college, and Boyhood ends with its main character going to college. And of course, Dazed and Confused is about young people who are kind of adrift, and this being the next step. So, no characters continuing from either film, but he said, like, in spirit, it is a continuation.
Okay. So the first film that I wanted to look at today is a prequel sequel called The Huntsman Winter's War. And basically the plot of this film is that Snow White got the mirror after the events of Snow White and the Huntsman. And the mirror started to drive her crazy, so she sent it away. And so the mirror goes missing on transit to whatever this new location is supposed to be, and it's the huntsman's job to track it. Now, if you back up, we find out that the evil queen had a sister, who I'm just going to call Elsa, because that's what she is, played by Emily Blunt. And basically, when Emily Blunt's character, Elsa, was having her first child, the evil queen found out something about that child and had the child murdered. This turned the second queen, Elsa, heart very, very cold, and she developed ice powers. What follows is you have the huntsman trying to track down the mirror and also having interactions with this evil white queen. And, of course, the evil queen from the first film makes an odd return. There's also a love story in there that really is kind of convoluted and pointless. I really didn't see the point for that to really exist within the plot, despite the fact that you have Chris Hemsworth and Jessica Chastain in lead roles. The film is messy to me in multiple ways. First of all, you have the contrivance of these two people who were trained by the White Queen falling in love, even though that's the one thing they're not supposed to do, because Elsa's heart is so fractured from the loss of her child and from learning that her husband, quote-unquote, killed their child. It doesn't work for me. I don't feel any sort of emotional pull towards keeping these two together. It really bothered me, because I wanted to like these characters. I liked everything leading up to the contrivance. And the side characters are great and funny, needed comic relief for such a dark tale. I don't know. I just felt like this movie was all over the place. Chuck, what did you think of The Huntsman Winter's War?
Well, it's a completely unnecessary movie. Obviously, this is a cash grab to follow up on the success of the first film. There are things I liked about it. There are things I didn't like about it. It basically left me feeling, nah. You know, I really didn't have any feelings about it at all, which I guess is telling. But you're right. It does have an all over the place feel to it. I can't remember a film being made that's both a prequel and a sequel. I don't think I've ever seen that before, which I didn't mind. It made sense to me to, you know, I really didn't care about the Elsa character, as you call her, but it was interesting to find out about the huntsman and what his deal was.
Yeah.
That I had no problem with, or the love story with him and Chastain. I was fine with that, but the whole, it just seems very forced, this whole thing between the sisters, the Queen sisters.
Yeah, I agree.
And things, and I had a problem with that. I wish that they had just told the story of the mirror. I love the whole thing about the mirror driving people crazy. And we only get these brief glimpses of Snow White.
Because Kristen Stewart decided not to cameo.
Well, she didn't decide. I don't think they wanted anything to do with her after she screwed the director of the first one, and that was publicity they didn't need. But I wish they had continued on that a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just focusing on the quest for the mirror and its effect on things, I think would have made for a much cleaner film, something that you could have really focused on, and I think it would have addressed this whole issue of it being messy. I know it's done pretty well in Europe. I mean, I think they released it 2 weeks before it was released here.
Okay.
So maybe this will make it profitable and even open it up for a third part, because obviously they leave that wide open at the end of this film.
Yeah, they do.
They're certainly hoping, I think, for this to be a franchise. But if they make a third one, it's going to have to be much more
streamlined. Yeah,
much more focused and much more plain, I think, as far as what it wants to do, if they're going to do
it. The reason I didn't like the romance is because of the contrivance of how they split up. It's one of the most easy kind of what's the word I'm looking for? That secret item that you get at the Indiana Jones films, that item.
The MacGuffin?
Yeah, it's a MacGuffin. Oh, this is here, and it's obvious that you're only going to see one side of things, and blah. It just felt way too coincidental for me. So that's the reason why I really didn't like Snow White and the Huntsman. For that reason, I'm planning on giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I really think it's a waste of time and that you shouldn't see it in theaters.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So the second film I wanted to talk about today is a movie called Criminal, starring Kevin Costner, Ryan Reynolds, Tommy Lee Jones, and Gary Oldman in possibly his most overacted performance ever.
And that's saying something.
Yeah, that really.
As you talk about this movie, I'm going to go back and look at his filmography
can you
to see
go
if there
ahead and
is
give the
something.
Plot while you find the filmography?
No.
Okay, basically it's this.
No, I want to hear you wrestle with this.
Okay, so.
Good luck.
Thank you. There is a CIA agent based in London. He has information on a specific asset.
Played by who?
Played by, oh God.
Come on, Ryan Reynolds.
No, I'm sorry, yeah. The CIA agent, played by Ryan Reynolds, is hiding an asset and some money. He is trying to avoid this revolutionary kind of captor guy who wants all countries to be a revolution. They find, torture, and execute him. And then, for some strange reason, the movie completely changes and says, let's make this into a face-off movie. Because then they grab Kevin Costner's character, Jericho, who is a convicted prison inmate with no emotional empathy whatsoever, and they're saying because he was physically beaten in some way by being thrown out of the car when he was little, let's map his pathways to match that of Ryan Reynolds' still possibly retained memories that we're keeping alive, just so we can extract this little bit of information from Ryan Reynolds' mind about where this asset is.
They
transfer the memories to Jericho, and then all hell breaks loose. It's just Oh, I don't even want to go any further than to say that. This movie is a mess. There's nothing I can really like about the character of Jericho other than that he kind of slowly gains some level of humanity through gaining access to the memories of CIA agent Pope. You get the CIA agent Handler, who is played by Oldman, who again is the most over-top performance of a CIA chief boss I've ever seen. Gal Gadot has a few moments of credibility within the character as the wife of Pope, who again is no longer living. It's one of those weird things where you expect it to be a little bit like The Bourne Identity, in the sense that you're hunting for a very specific piece of information to put the puzzle together, but it's filmed entirely incorrectly, in a sense where I can't care about Jericho, I can't care about the wife, I can't care about the doctor who made this procedure possible in the first place. It's just a vapid, shallow attempt at an action thriller where I think Costner could do much better, I think Tommy Lee Jones could do much better, and for all that it's worth, I think Ryan Reynolds could do much better in terms of being a part of such a messy, deeply flawed action thriller. Chuck, what did you think of Criminal?
I like this movie.
Okay, tell me why.
First off, Leon the Professional, I think, is still Oldman's most over-the-top performance. I forgot about that one. I swear to God, I thought his head was going to explode during that film. This is not a movie I can defend. I mean, I can't defend this film. It's absolutely ridiculous. However, I would say that it is the prime example of being a guilty pleasure. I had fun watching it because it was so ridiculous. And I also have fun when you see people who are very talented give their all to something that they must know is a complete turd, yet they must have all gotten together and said, you know what, we're going to sell this thing. We are going to play this like it's Hamlet, and we're going to sell this thing. So I enjoyed that. And it's odd when you see Tommy Lee Jones not get the overacting award in a film, you know you're in for something special. I mean, I thought he wisely underplayed everything.
Yes, he did,
So
which I thought was
enjoyed
great.
him. And Oldman, of course, was nutty as he is, and this is what we want from him. But I'm going to say a couple things here.
Okay.
I like the film because, as you say, in many ways, it's a standard action movie. And I thought the action was well done because I could follow it.
Yeah.
It wasn't the hyperkinetic horse shit that we usually have to sit through. The Huntsman being some of the worst action I've seen in years.
Oh, yes.
Cut together at this rapid pace. I don't know what the hell's going on. But I liked the fact, and I've always said Costner is underrated. And I would submit this as an example of him being underrated, because I like the fact that his character is completely a blank slate.
Yeah.
All he knows is anger. All he knows is lashing out because of this brain damage he suffered as a kid. And once he gets the memories of the Reynolds character, I thought it was poignant, the confusion he feels when he starts to feel these feelings of love for this woman he's never met and the daughter he's never met.
Yeah.
And the fact that once he's on the loose, that's the place he's headed. He's headed to find them.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand completely why,
Yeah.
but he knows that's the place he needs to be. And I really like the fact that Costner was struggling with these conflicting emotions, these conflicting intentions within the character. I thought that human underpinning made the film worthwhile. And also, I thought Costner was having a great time.
Costner was fine.
When he goes in and he has these badass moments, you know, when he goes in and he takes the sandwich in the place and he's like, well, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And he beats the hell out of the three guys and takes their van. That's not what you see from him usually. You know, he's usually, you know, the Gary Cooper stand-up American guy. So it was nice to see him have this edge.
He's had that sort of edge before, though.
He has.
It's just that he hasn't been given ample time to develop.
If you go back and you watch 3,000 Miles to Graceland, he's completely deplorable there, but no one saw that film. So I like that. I think he's kind of stretching himself. I like the scenes between him and the girl. This is obviously a template for him to do Taken, as Neeson did.
Yeah.
Because they leave this wide open for a sequel too, which isn't
Agreed.
going to happen because it's not making any money.
Yeah.
But again, I can't defend it, but I had fun, and it's definitely the very definition, I think, of a guilty pleasure.
It may very well be. I didn't enjoy it at all. But I do get what you're saying about the human underpinning of, Reynolds' memories coming in and his performance basically not even softening, just him learning
No.
more about what he or what Pope in this case would have wanted.
And then I think the other poignancy is that he finally gets a clue on what he's been missing
Yeah.
all of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And I love just he's got a couple of moments with the little girl, Pope's or Reynolds' daughter,
Mm-hmm.
that I thought were really nice. So again, I can't defend it, but I liked it.
Okay. The third film that I wanted to talk about today is Grandma, starring Lily Tomlin. And this is a pretty straightforward film. Grandma is about this woman who is definitely in her mid-60s, early 70s. She's a used to be prominent writer within the collegiate circles. One day she gets a knock on her door that it's her granddaughter, and her granddaughter happens to be pregnant and needs $560 in order to go and have an abortion. And the whole thing turns into basically what amounts to a road movie of trying to get this money from different characters her grandmother knows to be able to pay for this abortion. I should also mention that Marcia Gay Harden stars in this film in a supporting role. And it's really funny. It's a funny, wisecracking grandma who doesn't take crap from anybody, and you can tell that by her interactions with literally every character. She's frank. She doesn't have any emotions, really. But that's also not the truth. She has a ton of emotions. She just doesn't share it with anybody. You see that in the beginning, of course, when she originally breaks up with her girlfriend. And I can't remember the actress's name.
Judy
Greer.
Greer.
Yeah.
I'm pregnant.
Judy Greer. And she's crying in the shower, and you see, even though this woman is tough as nails, she feels a lot of pain. And so you see the grandma and her granddaughter go on this journey to find this money to get an abortion, and we see how it all plays out because you're looking at what are the consequences of this action. How did the granddaughter get wrapped up in needing to get an abortion and getting pregnant in the first place? All those things are at play here. What was the grandmother's past life before her partner died, her actual married partner, not the girlfriend? And how does that affect the granddaughter? What memories does the granddaughter have of the grandmother? And is this grandmother absent? Is she not? All those nice little complexities are spread throughout this Chris Weitz directed film. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny and poignant and also kind of silly at the same time. But not silly to the point where it's overwrought with humor that doesn't make sense. I really, really enjoyed Grandma. I really love Lily Tomlin's performance, and it makes me want to seek out other things within her filmography because I thought it was a terrific film. Chuck, what did you think of Grandma?
Yeah, I really liked it when it came out last year. And the one thing that I liked a lot of it, but the one moment that really stood out for me, and this made my list of top 10 scenes of that year, was the moment in which she visits Sam Elliott.
Yes.
A former partner of hers. And you see these two pros, these two veteran actors, they don't have to do much to just break your heart.
Yeah, they do everything in terms of looking into each other's eyes.
It's real quiet, it's real, and then when the hammer drops on that scene and you find out why they're no longer together.
You're like, oh.
And why he suddenly changes his mind about doing something for her. My God, it is a brilliant, brilliant moment, a brilliant example of underplaying of what film acting is. You don't have to be big in order to convey so much, and I love that moment about it. And I like the movie a lot too. I like the fact that it's a small film in its ambition, but that doesn't mean it's bad. but also a small film in its storytelling way. This movie, I don't even think runs 80 minutes, which
Yeah.
is another thing I liked. It had its point, and it made its point, and it moved on. There's no fat to this movie. And I also like the Marcia Gay Harden character, who is the granddaughter's mom, and how even though all three of these women have their differences, how she shows that when the chips are down, in her way,
Yeah.
she will be there.
You can see how they're all related and how they all could
Well,
cohesively be a family.
You know, when you raise a man or a woman to be a strong individual, and then they do the same, that's going to, be a recipe for some sort of contention between all of them at some point.
Yeah.
But you reap what you sow. I mean, in the end, it's good that you raise strong individuals.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one of the other points of the film. But yeah, no, I like this one a lot. And I was glad to see that it was at Ebert Fest, because I know, just looking at the box office, I know a lot of people didn't see it.
Yeah. Superb film. I'm glad it was at the festival as well. I have to say, that moment and also the moment in, I want to say it's the coffee shop.
With the girlfriend? Or
With
the ex-girlfriend?
When they interact.
Yeah.
That, for what would be the second time in the film. That's also a poignant moment. Or the moment at the end when they interact for the final time is also poignant.
Yeah.
I love the poignancy overall of this film. But those moments that we've highlighted are reasons you need to see Grandma.
It's a prime example of less is more.
Yeah, definitely. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is TV shows, because we've caught up on a bunch of stuff. The Flash, of course. You're caught up with that, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
And then Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to it. We got The Flash. Episode, 19 or 18?
I don't know.
18 or 19. It's
I don't know.
called Flash versus Zoom. And man,
Well, hello there.
that is
All's well.
that is the darkest episode of The Flash I have ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
I mean, wow. In this episode, we learn the origins of Hunter Zolomon, which stems from Hunter Zolomon seeing his mother shot right in front of him after his dad comes home from presumably what we can only assume is a war, and developed PTSD, and that thereby orphans Hunter Zolomon, and he is sent to an orphanage, of course, where he is neglected and treated horribly, to the point where when he gets out of the orphanage, all he does is commit crimes, and as the reason he's able to commit those crimes is because while at the orphanage, they do shock treatment on Hunter Zolomon. Unfortunately, it's right at the time where the particle accelerator experiment is going on, and of course, because of the shock treatment, he gets speed powers. So that's when he becomes a speedster, and he decides to do evil things. But he also decides to do good things because he realizes the world needs a hero. Psych, not really. It's because he wants to give people hope and then rip it away. Man, Chuck, do you want to talk about what your thoughts on this episode are?
I want to hold off on talking about the Flash and this episode because this one really leaves you hanging. And I also read some comments from the showrunners saying that they would never sully the heritage of Jay Garrick, the character who was the original Flash in the 40s. So I'm still waiting to see how they're going to play this out because I did have a real problem with Jay being a villain. And obviously they're turning this whole thing around with this Hunter Zolomon thing. So
You wanna hold
I liked the fact, though, that it was dark. I mean, I know a lot of many of the things I've said about The Flash that I like is that it is an upbeat, positive, lighthearted show. But that doesn't mean that it can't go into those dark areas effectively, which it did here. Still some mysteries going around. We still don't know who that guy locked up in Zolomon's place is with the mask.
I have an idea of
I
who it
still
might
have
be.
my ideas as well. So I'm just always surprised as to how engaged I am with this show and how I cannot wait for the next week. And thankfully, there are going to be no skip weeks here until this thing wraps up the week before Memorial Day. So we have Flash every week for the next 5 or 6 weeks, and I'm sure that it will not disappoint.
I don't think it will either. The other thing I wanted to talk with you about is Better Call Saul episodes 9 and 10. Uh, number 10 is entitled Click, and I forget what number 9 is titled.
Episode 9.
Well, let's just call it episode 9.
Okay.
So in episodes 9 and 10, we have Mesa Verde, the company that, I'm skipping names now. The company that Jimmy and his girlfriend, whose name I'm blanking on right now, have been going after. They've decided that, this is going to be the company that makes their mark in the industry of the law. And apparently Mesa Verde's head gets turned by Chuck. And that's done because Chuck decides to go into work and decides to, forego being scared of the electromagnetic field that apparently surrounds all the electricity within everywhere.
Well, but it's also done because he wants to get that client and get it back. It's done out of spite.
It's done out of spite because
Kim.
he doesn't want Jimmy to succeed. Kim and Jimmy are then put in an awful position where they lose Mesa Verde to Chuck. And Chuck, of course, is kind of rubbing it in that he has Mesa Verde. And Jimmy is like, well, I can't let this happen. So when his brother gets in a horrible state, I won't say how, Jimmy does something so underhanded but yet so brilliant that you really can't be upset at him at all, which is I'll spoil it. He switches the numbers on the property.
Doctors some documents.
Okay, well, he doctors some documents. So the next day when those documents are put forth to a judge so that the real estate venture can go through, there's a discrepancy, and that discrepancy causes Mesa Verde to have to put their big deal on hold. And it's all Chuck's fault. Chuck then goes to confront Kim and Jimmy about the fact that these things were doctored. Chuck does everything he can to fully point out how Jimmy may have done this, and Kim defends him. And then Jimmy, surprised, is like, oh, okay, I can go now. And they go to the car, and of course Kim knows that Jimmy did something to doctor those documents. And as they lay in bed that night, Kim says, well, I wouldn't want to go up against your brother because he's one of the best lawyers in town. So whoever's done this is going to have all their I's dotted and T's crossed. And at that point, Jimmy remembers the one little last thing he has to take care of, which is paying off the copier guy that he used to get this done, which results in what I might say is the second ugliest thing to happen in this series so far, which is Chuck comes in, finds the copier guy, asks him about whether he saw Jimmy. The guy denies it over and over again. The electricity overwhelms Chuck, and boom! Chuck hits his head on the counter, and we're thinking, oh crap. Oh, not to mention that Jimmy is like a block away watching this whole thing happen. Chuck, what did you think of episodes 9 and 10?
I was a little disappointed, frankly. I liked 9 a lot because I thought that what he did was genius. 10 disappointed me a little bit because as smart as Jimmy is, I didn't believe that he would actually fall for what happens at the end of the episode.
I agree with you completely.
Also, the subplot with Mike, or is that his name?
Yeah, Mike Ermitrant.
I thought was anticlimactic. That kind of upset me.
Yeah, because we both are looking forward to the day where Hector Salamanca ends up in that wheelchair.
So yeah, there's something I thought, and I still love the show. Don't get me wrong, but I was left wanting at the end.
The hospital scene in episode 10 to me is the best thing that they've done.
It was good.
The whole idea of Chuck being treated by all these doctors and looking at the electrical magnetic field in the air affecting Chuck. And Chuck saying, oh no, I don't want this, oh no, I don't want this. You feel very claustrophobic and very trapped with him when you're watching that scene. And that, to me, was the standout of the whole thing. I think you're correct in saying that Jimmy should have seen the setup from Chuck, where he confessed to everything at the end of the season. Now the question is, what's Chuck going to do with that information, and is it going to hold water? My whole thing, I heard a theory was that styrofoam that he was hiding the recorder under didn't record anything because of the fact that it was under that electromagnetic shield.
We'll see.
We'll see. But it's a really, really, really good episode, and I enjoyed the finale. Not as much as I wanted to, but a good amount. So I'm excited for Season 3 of Better Call Saul. So what are we looking forward to next week, very briefly?
Nothing.
Anything good
Nope.
coming out? Nothing?
Unless you want to see Gary Marshall's Mother's Day, nothing.
Okay, so then maybe next week we'll look at Miles Ahead, the new Miles Davis pick by Don Cheadle, if it's still in theaters. Okay, so until next time, you can find my work at thewheelchairwatcher.com and Chuck's work at the News Gazette and the Illinois Times. Until next time, this has been Rural Reviews Cinematic Underground. We will see you guys later.